Every year, the AFC hypes Buffalo, Baltimore, Denver, and Kansas City. So Houston keeps showing up and punching people in the mouth until January arrives. In 2026, the Texans have a rebuilt line. They've added a battle-tested veteran to their backfield, and one of the most elusive receivers in the game is fighting his way back from injury. The defense has proven it knows how to wreck a playoff game, so if CJ Stroud finds his rookies flatter again, everybody sleeping on Houston better get their head on the swivel.
These guys have been in the Final Four of the AFC 3 straight years. Why is this year going to be different?
CJ with a little time throws to the end zone. Caught, touchdown, Jaden Higgins.
Double three, 1, 2, 3.
The Houston Texans have reached the divisional round 3 years in a row. And somehow, every offseason, the AFC conversation starts with everybody else in the conference. Then someone remembers Houston as one of the nastiest defenses in football and goes, oh yeah, them too. That's going to be a mistake in 2026 because the Texans finally spent the offseason attacking the part of this team that keeps getting them bounced in January. They upgraded the offensive line. They brought in a downhill runner to pair with Woody Marks and the sneakiest receiver in football back after missing all of last season. That gives CJ Stroud something he hasn't had enough of lately: help. So what happens if this new offensive line can actually keep them upright? What happens if Houston has a running game defenses have to respect? And what the hell does this offense look like with a healthy receiving corps for 17 games? Because we already know the defense can carry Houston into January. If the offense finally starts carrying its own weight, the Texans may be capable of staying there a hell of a lot longer. So hit that like and subscribe to Snap Count because Houston might be the AFC contender everybody realizes they slept on about 3 months too late.
I love you, baby. Have some fun out there, boy.
Houston's defense is fraying loaded, period. Will Anderson Jr. and Daniel Hunter can wreck a pocket without Nico Ryans having to manufacture pressure. Jerry Stingley Jr. can erase a number 1 receiver. Tamari Lassiter is becoming a bigger problem on the other side with every snap, and Kalen Bullock gives Houston another playmaker sitting behind all of it. Good luck with that. This group has already proven it can drag Houston deep into January. The Texans have reached the divisional round every year since Ryans took over. The defense keeps giving them a chance to go further. Eventually, the offense has to cash the check. That's been the frustrating part. Houston can spend 3 quarters beating the hell out of an opposing quarterback, forcing bad throws, slipping field position, and keeping the game exactly where it wants it. And the offense gets the football back and everybody says a prayer. It's a brutal way to live in January, because eventually you run into Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Bo Nix or Patrick Mahomes. And asking your defense to hold those guys down all afternoon while your offense struggles to sustain drives is how a Super Bowl caliber defense ends another season watching somebody else play for one.
Number 1, if you were going to power rank them, may be that Houston defense. That's how good that Houston defense is.
The crazy part is that Houston doesn't need CJ Stroud in this offense to become some unstoppable juggernaut. Give this defense leads, keep it off the field long enough to breathe, turn a couple of those short fields into touchdowns, and that may be enough. That's why Houston is so interesting in 2026. The hardest part is already built. Now we need to figure out whether the quarterback who looks like a future superstar as a rookie can finally get the other half of this team moving again. The important thing to remember is that CJ Stroud didn't suddenly forget how to play quarterback. Houston just made his job way too damn hard. The offensive line spent 2025 getting buried at or near the bottom of every serious ranking out there. By the end of the season, the Texans were 30th in pass block win rate and dead last in run block win rate. It's a bad combination if your game plan involves moving the football. It didn't help that Houston lost Joe Mixon for the entire season. When that happened, the Texans got real predictable. They became more conservative, leaned into ball control, and tried to let that monster defense dictate games instead of asking Stroud to win shootouts every Sunday. It worked well enough to get them back to January. That also put a governor on the offense. There were fewer chances to let Stroud sit in the pocket and attack downfield, partly because that pocket usually had an expiration date measured in milliseconds. Nico Collins still produced like a legit number 1, finishing with 71 catches for 1,117 yards. But here's where things get weird. Dalton Schultz caught 82 balls. Houston's tight end had 11 more receptions than his Pro Bowl number 1 receiver. That tells you a lot about what this passing game became. Get the ball out, take what's underneath, keep the chains moving, don't give the defense a short field, and with Tank Dell's on, Houston never found one receiver who consistently forced defenses to stop leaning towards Collins. Instead, the leftover work got spread around.
Fake the run, Stroud circling, throwing, end zone, touchdown!
Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, and Xavier Hutchinson all got pieces of the passing game. And yes, somehow Houston ended up with 3 Iowa State receivers at the same time. However the hell that happens. That's commitment to a scouting department, I guess. Higgins showed the most promise with 525 yards and 6 touchdowns. Woody Marks did the same out of the backfield. He finished with 911 yards from scrimmage despite starting only 8 games, which is pretty damn encouraging for a rookie playing behind a line that couldn't consistently move anybody. But Houston spent too much of 2025 surviving on offense. Stroud was protecting himself from pressure. The running game was trying to replace Mixon by committee. The receivers were trying to replace Dell by committee. And Nico was trying to create explosive plays while defenses knew exactly where the danger was coming from. That's why we're not ready to blame Stroud for the whole thing.
Yeah, he wasn't great. He wasn't able to elevate the talent around him. But also consider this, that offensive line was 30th in pass block win rate, and they were dead last in run block win rate.
The Texans gave him a broken offensive line, took away his starting running back, lost his number 2 receiver, and then I asked him to keep the car between the lines until the defense won the game. So this offseason, Houston finally stopped patching holes. They went shopping. Houston spent the offseason doing something refreshingly simple. They looked at what sucked and tried to fix it. Start with the offensive line. The Texans added Wyatt Teller, one of the nastiest guards in football when he's healthy. They brought in veteran tackle Braden Smith. Then they used their first-round pick on Kalen Rutledge. That's not tinkering, that's a confession. We sucked last year. Houston knew the line wasn't good enough, and instead of hoping the same group magically figured it out, they went out and replaced pieces of it. And yeah, nobody gets a parade for fixing an offensive line in August. These guys still have to play together. They still have to prove they can protect Stroud when Josh Hines-Allen, TJ Watt, or one of the other maniacs in the AFC decides to room this afternoon. But at least Houston finally gave itself a chance. And the running game got a hell of a lot more interesting, too.
We got breaking news from the NFL. The Detroit Lions are trading running back David Montgomery to the Houston Texans. That's according to multiple reports.
David Montgomery arrives from Detroit with exactly the personality this offense needs. He runs angry, he'll take the ugly carries, 3rd and 2, goal line, 4th quarter with a lead when everybody in the stadium knows exactly what's coming. That lets Woody Marks become what he probably should be right now. A dangerous complementary back instead of the guy Houston needs to carry the whole operation. Marks already gave them 911 yards from scrimmage as a rookie while starting only 8 games. Now pair that juice with Montgomery's power, and Houston suddenly has a backfield that can help Stroud instead of asking him to solve everything himself. Then there's the wild card, Tank Dell. We're not building this argument around Dell coming back and immediately looking like the guy we remember. He missed all of 2025 and that injury was friggin' brutal. Anything Houston gets from him has to be considered a bonus until he proves otherwise. But he's back doing football work, and if that speed comes back, things get really interesting really quickly. Nico already commands the attention. Jaden Higgins showed enough as a rookie to give use of another big target. Add even 75 or 80% of Tank Dell, and suddenly defenses can't spend every 3rd down beating toward Collins of daring someone else to beat him.
If Tank Dell is healthy and he still separates the way we've seen him early in his career, it could be very special for the Texans offense.
That's the whole point of Houston's offseason. They didn't need to go find 5 superstars. They needed competent protection, a rebuilt running game, and another receiver defenses respected. And they got all 3. Maybe the line still isn't good enough. Maybe Dell never gets all the way back. Maybe Montgomery is closer to the end than Houston wants to admit. Those are fair questions, but for the first time in a while, the Texans actually have answers on paper. And even if 2 of these fixes work, CJ Stroud's job gets a hell of a lot easier, which means that defense may finally stop waiting around for the offense to catch up. So are we sleeping on Houston? Yeah, at least as much as you can with the number 9 team in the NFL power rankings. And to be clear, you'd be an idiot to think the Texans suck. They've made the divisional round 3 years in a row, and that defense scares the hell out of everybody. The disrespect comes when we start talking about who can actually win the AFC. Buffalo gets mentioned, Baltimore gets mentioned, Denver gets mentioned, and Kansas City is going to get mentioned until Patrick Mahomes retires and ascends into heaven. Houston usually comes somewhere after that, or I think that's a mistake. The Texans already have the hardest piece to build, the defense capable of wrecking a playoff game. Now they spent an all season trying to make CJ Stroud's life easier. That's enough to elevate the ceiling for this team, and obviously the whole thing comes back to Stroud. He looked like the next superstar quarterback. It's a rookie. Now he has to prove that guy is still in there somewhere. If he does, Houston becomes an absolute nightmare because the Mika Ryans fixed the culture just by walking in the door. And Nick Caserio just spent the offseason rebuilding everything around his quarterback. If those moves finally get this offense out of its own way, Texans have everything they need to get past the divisional round, maybe even a hell of a lot further.
Great job right there getting the first one. Now on to the next one.
So yeah, we think people are sleeping on Houston. By January, they may wish they hadn't. Let us know where you have the Texans in the AFC, and subscribe to Snap Count for more NFL breakdowns without the usual hot take circus. And we'll see you in the next one.